tell me about it, man.
That's nice.
Got a little bit of a cold. So
A lot of people do. Going around. Welcome to another episode of the Yankee
and the Hillbilly.
And here we are. We are going to talk about a subject where we're not trying to be funny today. Teacher pay, specifically in North Carolina.
Yes, I mean we can tie this into the Yankee and the Hillbilly because we can do some comparisons about what teacher pay is in the Yankee states and compared to what they are down in the South, and we can explore why that happens and talk about that. I do know that being an educator with 20 years of experience in public education, that there over the past 10 years there has been, it seems like, an attack on public education, and I have some reasons why I think that that's happening, but I want to hear what you think about it because you relocated.
Let's talk about teacher pay for real quick in North Carolina.
Okay.
I spent a year up in New Jersey as a special education aide, not a teacher, an aide, and then I also worked at night as an assistant manager at a toy store. I made more money doing that until my fourth year teaching when I got my master's degree and my master's pay kicked in.
Which we need to talk about that too, the master's degree and the General Assembly not wanting to compensate you or recognize that as being a asset.
But honestly, I think they're going to rectify that this session. But we can talk about that. So, but I mean, no one becomes a teacher because they want to get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
You do it for the students, and that's one of the things that makes teachers an easy target. Because as mad as I get, as upset as I get, I'm not going to do anything to hurt my students.
Right.
I'm going to keep on doing the same job I was doing. I'm not going to cut back. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Because that's not fair to these students. So, and that makes teachers an easy target because we will voice our opinions, but we won't take any drastic actions.
Yeah, I know that in North Carolina we are a right to work state, which means that we have no negotiating or bargaining power whatsoever. We basically have to pretty much do whatever the state tells us that we have to do. And
but there's a ways around that because I mean, even coming from where I came from, where unions did and teachers would go on strike. The most effective strike that I was ever affected by happened when I was in elementary school, and the teachers didn't walk out of the classrooms, but they refused to give homework, which made the parents very upset. I loved it as a kid. But then they wouldn't go to any of the after-school meetings. They wouldn't do any of that extra stuff.
Right.
After school, they did their job, but they wouldn't stay for the meetings. They wouldn't do, and honestly, I mean, I don't see why that couldn't happen in North Carolina.
I know that I personally probably would not participate in those sort of things because it ties, for what we do, it really ties too much into how it affects the kids. So if we did not attend those type of meetings, then it would start affecting the kids.
So the governor, Pat McCrorys, has come out and said he is going to give a raise to beginning teachers. So experienced teachers like Jay and myself will not be getting raises. Jay likened this to a snowstorm, and they are only going to plow the newer roads and leave the older roads unplowed.
Yeah, when I was thinking about it, because if you look at McCrorys' model for what he's trying to do, if you look really closely at it and you look through it, I mean, it's a con game. It's a con game. I think it is used to further his agenda to pretty much tear down public education, because his position is, and he will tell you all day, yeah, I care about teachers, I care about education. Well, his actions so far have demonstrated that he really doesn't. I think what he's trying to do by only giving a certain amount of teachers a pay raise is to divide the teaching community into the newer teachers, experienced teachers. Because right now, pretty much the entire state, if you're a public educator, the entire state is protesting. All teachers are protesting because nobody has gotten a raise.
Well, one raise in 7 years.
Yeah, one raise in 7 years. So now I guess his strategists are saying, okay, well, let's do this. Let's don't give everybody a raise. Let's just give the newer teachers a raise and let that divide them. If you give the newer teachers a raise, they're probably not going to protest anymore. And that's going to cause maybe some of these 20 plus years of experienced teachers to just go ahead and quit. And if they quit, we can replace them with a first year teacher and not have to pay them, a 20-year salary. Or what a teacher was making at 20-year salaries, which if they keep going like they're going, there's not going to be that much difference because...
Well, I mean, honestly, new teachers are getting what is being reported as a 14% raise, which is a pretty hefty raise. But, basically, you're going to have, a teacher right out of college pretty much making the same that I'm making after working in North Carolina for 10 years.
Well, you're going to have first year teachers that are going to be making more than a teacher that has 9 to 10 years of experience.
And now, let us be very clear with this. The new beginning teachers deserve every cent that they get.
Amen. They do.
Teaching is a much harder job than anyone who has never worked in a school could ever realize. And so we're not upset with them. We don't think, they deserve it. But we think that all the teachers in North Carolina deserve a raise. We would like to see, a smaller raise for everyone rather than jumping right to 14%.
Well, it's like, okay, these are the questions that I have. Is it, and we can argue about what's fair and what's not fair all day long, but this is the way I look at it. As I look at it as a justification of how can you justify giving a 14% raise to a first year teacher teaching first grade whose classroom is right next to a veteran 20 plus years first grade teacher who has been given the responsibility to mentor all these new teachers. So, you're teaching the same grade level, and how can you justify giving this new first year teacher a 14% raise and then not giving the veteran teacher anything? Then my next question is does this not just blow holes all in the evaluation system that we have right now, or the EVOS? Is it EVOS? Mm-hmm. The EVOS system. And how does this affect the evaluation system? How does this affect the whole performance pay? How do you bring that into the argument? Because
I'll be perfectly honest, I don't think the performance pay system was well thought out when they planned it, implemented it, whatever. So if that's going away, I'm glad to see that going away. But if they're doing this to try, new teachers are leaving the state. We're not retaining teachers. Well, I hate to tell you,
that's not going to keep them here.
It's not going to keep them here because even with a 14% raise, new teachers are still making several thousand less than new teachers would be making up north.
And And 2 to 3 years, in 2 to 3 years, these new teachers that are coming from the north and other states, you just made it attractive for them to come down and teach for 2 or 3 years to get enough experience, so then they can move right back up and try to get a job. And I know personally 2 teachers that have done that. They came and worked in North Carolina for 2 years. They were from Michigan. They came down. You have to have experience before you can get a job in Michigan. They came down, got their experience.
Michigan, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. The list goes on and on. I mean, now I'm not saying, I came down here and I stayed. I love North Carolina. It's a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful state. But, I mean, a lot of teachers, they come down here for a job and then they move on. I mean, it happens. But by rewarding, the first couple of years, that's not going to change anything.
McCrorys plan. This is what the analogy. When I was thinking about his plan, we're having a snowstorm right now, and Pat McCrory, he was scheduled to come on and speak on the local news about the winter crisis. So I made an analogy. I said, Pat McCrory is going to come on and he's going to talk about the coming winter weather. His plan is to clear all roads that are 10 years or younger. So everything that's a new road up to 10 years, he's going to clear that off and treat it and make it pristine. Everything else that's 10 years or older just has to suffer. When asked, how does that make any sense? And, he basically says it makes perfect sense. I'm inclined to believe that he doesn't care. He has a different agenda. I personally think that him and the people who control the General Assembly right now,
I don't think they have any idea what's going on in schools. I don't think they understand the wide range of testing that is going on. I mean, there is more standardized testing this year than there has been any other year, and contrary to the commercials where he says he cut back on testing, these kids are being tested all the time. 3rd grade
is getting tested out the yin yang because they're like taking these little miniature. What are those miniature tests? Yeah. And we got folks. We got 3rd grade teachers that are crying coming out of the classroom and saying, "Why don't they just let us teach?
Yeah.
Why don't they just let us teach?" And for people who are not that don't work in education, trust me. And I'm not trying to insult anybody, but unless you have gone in and worked, I'm going to say and worked as a teacher for at least a year. And a year is only going to give you just a little bit of what it's like to work in education. You're not going to know the whole scope of it. So people that have never done it, guys, we're doing more. We're doing more than babysitting and passing out crayons, which is what a lot of the general population thinks that we're doing.
A lot of the parents think we're doing too. I mean, I think if you're making education policy, you should have to spend at least a week in a school.
Right.
I mean,
teaching. Being part of the instruction, being part of delivering the instruction.
Should I be making foreign policy, having never had any foreign policy? International experience?
No. And here's another thing that gets me, Matt, is that you got people in places of power who are, they're going on their like 70s, late 70s. And they're in there like, back when I went to school, a chalkboard and a piece of chalk was good enough for me.
We had 50 kids in that classroom.
Where's the abacus? I don't see an abacus. When we went outside, playing on concrete and sharp metallic objects was good enough for us. It just boggles the mind. And some of you may have heard this when they talk. This guy was talking about money being spent to build schools. And he said, why do they have to be taught in a Taj Mahal? You could teach kids in a dairy barn. If you had a good teacher in the right curriculum, which we're not even going to start talking about curriculum.
No.
That's a whole different session.
I will say this: a good teacher makes do with what they have, and
if you let them do it, if you turn them loose, if you turn a good teacher loose, they will teach your child. They will teach them. Now, we're not saying there's not some bad teachers out there, but as a whole, what I've observed is I don't see a lot of people coming to school every day looking not to do their job. Everybody I know tries their best to do their job and to teach kids. And I'll tell you this, in my 20 years, I have seen teachers be let go. Some of you think that back when tenure was in place that it was impossible. It's not.
no,
You
very
can
easy.
you can get rid of a bad teacher very easily, and it's been done. So, ooh, I'm starting to get fired up now. Should I tilt my hat forward? Should I look more like protrude my lower jaw to make me look more tough?
There's a lot of rumors going about what's happening in education, and I think if you really are worried about it, go spend some time in your local school.
Agreed. You need to go if you really want to know what's going on.
Volunteer, and you will be amazed at the wonderful things that are happening that the teachers are doing, and you'll be shocked at some of the hoops that the teachers and administrators have to jump through.
Yeah, and know this, it's been proven time and time again that, in the news you hear it, teachers have laid down their lives for their students, and these are the type of people that you're talking about. These are the type of people who have the kids' best interest in mind. These are the people who are asking, we don't want to make, we're not looking to make $100,000 a year. We're not looking to drive around in Bentleys and Rolls Royces. But what we are looking for is a respect and an equivalent salary, which goes along with the responsibility that we have for the kids, not just to educate them, but to keep them safe. So think about that.
This has been another episode of the Yankee
And the Hillbilly. What he said. Splicey?
Splicey. Kind of karmatic.
Splicey. I kind of like it.